Hi, Crime Junkie jury. I'm Lauren Conlin, and this is your Diddy Daily Digest. We are on day 15 of the United States versus Sean Combs. What they were discussing this morning, I actually feel like it might be interesting to everybody. So during the cross-examination of Mia, Brian Steele mentioned a lot of these birthday posts that Mia did for Diddy after he allegedly sexually assaulted her, after he treated her horribly. She's saying, I love you, happy birthday every year. And it was a thing. Well, the government moved, or they're going to write a letter to try to submit Diddy's phone calls from MDC, specifically the one where he's talking to somebody, I'm guessing a family member, about his birthday and doing some kind of social media campaign around his birthday, to maybe gain sympathy, whatever. And the judge is like, why do you want this in again? And the government's like, well, because we want to show that this is what Sean Combs did. He used his birthday to rally around a campaign or something that he was promoting at the time. He used his birthday, for social media purposes, etc. So they're going to submit a letter, and we might get to hear some of Diddy's phone calls, depending on what the judge says. But anyway, let's get to the morning, because the morning was pretty crazy. We heard from Eddie Garcia. He is from a company called Securitas. And I mentioned in the first video that the first witness we heard from in the trial was a man named Israel Flores, who was formerly also at Securitas. And Israel Flores was one of Eddie Garcia's, one of his two bosses. So we heard from Israel Flores first, and Eddie Garcia was working the shift after Israel Flores at 2 p.m. on March 5th, 2016, at the InterContinental Hotel. So Securitas was the company that the InterContinental had a contract with to do security there. Now, he testified that when he got to his shift at 2 p.m. and we saw, a sign-in sheet, all of that stuff, he was told that there was an incident. And he was able to watch this video, this incident video, as part of his job. And he watched it. He said he didn't know that it was Cassie Ventura or Sean Combs at first. And then after watching it again and being told by somebody else, that he's like, yes, okay, got it. Sean Combs, Cassie Ventura. So he goes about his day. And at one point, he's at the security desk watching all these videos, and the security desk phone rings. And he said it's a New York area code, and it was someone named Christina Coram, and she said that she was a personal assistant to Sean Combs. And by the way, Eddie testified that he answered the phone like, this is Eddie. So she knew his name, he was introduced to her, and she just said, look, Sean Combs, Mr. Combs is a little nervous because he was intoxicated and he wants to see the video. He doesn't know what's on it. And Garcia said that he was like, look, I can't really help you. You have to either get a subpoena or you have to contact hotel security. And she's like, okay. So a few hours later, he gets a call from the hotel, and someone named Christina is in the lobby there to see him. So he goes to the lobby, he meets her. He describes Christina Coram as, we've seen her photo before, and he described what we have seen. And he talks to her, reiterates again, like, look, I can't do anything about this. I don't have clearance to get you this video. And, she's just like, okay, we just were really worried. And he says that he told her, okay, well, off the record, it's really bad, because Coram kept saying, we just want to know what we're dealing with here. And he said, yeah, it's pretty bad off the record. So she's like, okay. So they part ways. He says he goes back to his desk and he sends an email to his boss, who is Bill Medrano. And we've heard this name before, by the way. We heard it mentioned by Israel Flores, because the ranking for Securitas really goes Bill, Israel, and then Eddie Garcia. So he sends an email saying, look, Mr. Combs and his associates, or, his assistants, they really want to have a sit-down meeting with the InterContinental. They're really good patrons, etc. So he said sometime later, after he sends that email, he gets another call from Christina Coram, and she passes the phone over because she says someone wants to talk to you, and it's Sean Combs. And Eddie Garcia is like, whoa. So he says that Sean Combs, Diddy, sounded nervous. He was talking fast. And he's like, look, man, you know how women are. Like, I'm nervous. This could be the end of me, my reputation. And I'm paraphrasing, but it was something along those lines. Like, I really need this video because my reputation is finished if I don't get it. So again, he says to him, I can't do anything about this. Like, I'm so sorry. And, they leave it at that. He goes home for the night. And then he says he gets a call on his personal cell phone, which he said he did not give anybody. And he testified that he was a little bit nervous because, he didn't give his phone number out. So KK calls him and again passes the phone directly over to Diddy. And he says that Diddy said, you seem like a good guy. I'm really upset. Like, this is going to ruin my career if it gets out. Is there something you can do? Like, I know there's something you can do. I believe in you, type of thing. And again, Eddie says, sorry, I don't have the credentials to get into this room, open the door and, get the USB drive. I just don't. It's not me. And he said, he said that Diddy said, look, I'll take care of you. Don't worry. And he said he understood that to be money. So he says, okay. And what he does is he hangs up. He calls his boss, Bill Medrano. And he said that Medrano kind of paused for a minute and said, all right, I'll do it, $50,000. So he calls Diddy back and says, okay, my boss said, we'll do it, $50,000. Oh, and by the way, he testified, Eddie Garcia, at the beginning that he does have immunity for all of this. So when he called Diddy back, he said Diddy was very excited and he referred to him as Eddie, my angel. We heard the phrase Eddie, my angel multiple times. It was very wild to hear that. So he said, Eddie, my angel, I knew you can do it. I knew you could do it. So Eddie contacts Bill and says, yep, it's a go. Sean Combs said 50 is okay. Let's do this. The next day he gets to work. He sees Bill go get this USB drive. He hands it to Eddie and he says, yeah, go figure it out. Go do it. So Eddie calls Diddy. Diddy says, meet me, 15 minutes away. He goes to this high-rise building. He said he's pretty nervous. He gets there. Security brings him up to this room with like a coffee table, a couch, and KK is in and out, he said. And he said that he was so nervous that his voice kept cracking. And Diddy was kind of like, are you good? And he said he was embarrassed, so he lied. He's like, yeah, I'm getting sick. And he said that Diddy offered him some tea. And then he's like, do you like tea? And he's like, I don't really know. And then Diddy said to KK, go get him that tea I really like, or something like that. So they were discussing, the details, and Diddy asked him, is this the only copy of the tape or the video? And he had to call his boss, Medrano. Medrano said, yep, that's the only copy. He says, yes. And then Diddy says, okay, I need to get all 3 of your IDs, meaning who was on duty and, the boss, because he's helping facilitate this talk ever. Yeah. So he needs Medrano's ID, Garcia's ID, and then he says he needs Flores's ID, because Flores, by the way, during his testimony, he actually was the one that came up to the 6th floor where they were and saw the vase on the ground broken and saw Cassie and actually interacted with Diddy. But when Eddie Garcia called Medrano to tell him this, like, he needs the IDs, they were like, yeah, I don't think Flores is going to go for this. And it's true, because Flores testified that Diddy kind of offered him that stack of money and he's like, get away from me. So Medrano said, you know what? No, not Flores. Let's get him someone else's ID. So there was another guy named Henry Elias. They got his ID instead. So Medrano texted Eddie Garcia their IDs, and then he gave his to Diddy in person, sent the other IDs over. Diddy takes them. He comes back and he gives him an NDA to sign. Now, on this NDA, by the way, he said that, let me find it. There was a place where basically it said that if you break the NDA, you have to pay $1 million or some ridiculous fine like that. So the government really made sure that we saw what was on this NDA. And Eddie Garcia testified that he didn't really even want to, he testified that he didn't even read it because he was so nervous. So he was just like, I don't even want to look at this. I'm just gonna, I'm gonna sign it right away. So yeah, it's liquidated damages. Recipient agrees to pay a sum of $1 million in the event of a breach of confidentiality. So he signs it. And Diddy says, great, comes back with cash and a money counter. And it wasn't $50,000. He gave him $100,000. So he overpaid him. He counted it with the counter right in front of him. And also he, made a comment to Diddy saying, look, by the way, the police are going to know about this if Cassie decides to press charges. Like, just so you know, I'm just warning you here. And Diddy FaceTimed Cassie. And Eddie Garcia said he spoke to Cassie via FaceTime. He said her demeanor was normal. And she just said, look, I have a movie coming out. I don't need this to get out either, which kind of made him feel better, I guess. So anyway, so he says that he gets up to leave. Diddy says, I'll walk you out. He goes to walk him out. And he says, how are you going to spend the money? And Garcia said, I don't know. And Diddy said, don't spend it all, in one place, meaning don't draw attention to this. And he said that he got his car and Diddy was getting his car as well. And when he pulled away, he kind of looked in the rearview mirror to make sure he wasn't being followed. He wasn't. He said that 2 weeks later, it was Easter, and Diddy called him to sort of check in. And he said, Eddie, my angel, again. And he said, has anybody asked about the video or has the video come up? And Eddie said, nope, all good. And that was that. And then he testified that maybe 2 years later, he reached out to Diddy on Instagram to look for work and security. Diddy never wrote back. And then the government asked him, did you report this money or did you pay taxes on this money? And he said, no. Did you tell anyone about this money? No. And then when the government actually approached him in June of 2024, he lied to the government. He said he was very nervous. He lied to them about everything. He deleted all his text messages between, himself and Henry Elias, anything incriminating. And then he actually got a lawyer and then spoke to the government again and was very truthful. So that was about it. During the cross-examination done by Brian Steele, he just kind of reiterated like, hey, you had some good feelings about Mr. Combs, right? Because you reached out to him to work for him, via Instagram. And he's like, yeah, I guess so. And then they went back to the NDA and there was a few sections that the defense kind of zoomed in on. And one was a section that basically said, it was like exclusions from non-use and non-disclosure. It said, if a court order or law enforcement requests info or another governing body, this will not be a breach. You can tell law enforcement or the government. And then there was another section that he zoomed in on, a non-disparagement section, where it said nothing in this agreement is intended to prevent, from anyone making truthful statements in any legal proceedings. So that was pretty much that. Okay, and then the government after lunch, they pulled up a stipulation with just some Cellbrite records and 2 cell phones they seized from KK, one from Diddy, and there was a contact info place, and in the stored contacts was Eddie, my angel. So there you go. Okay, so then the next and last witness of the day was Derek Ferguson, a former CFO of Combs Enterprises. He worked for Diddy from 1998 to 2017, and from 98 to 2012, he was the CFO of Bad Boy Entertainment, and then after that, he was the chief growth officer and COO of Revolt Films. So during the direct, it was a lot of like, okay, let's go through all of these businesses that Mr. Combs had, Bad Boy, Revolt, Sean John, the liquor company, all of these things. And, he was also corroborating some of the staff that we've seen. And I knew that he was very buttoned up and maybe didn't know some of the things that other employees had known, because they showed a picture of one of Diddy's security guards, Paul Offred, I think his name is. And many people, when they say, do you know him as any other names? Most of the employees that we've heard from thus far have said Uncle Paulie, and he did not say that. So I'm like, okay, he probably wasn't around at night or, for any of these trips, I guess, my speculation. So he talked just sort of about how salaries were paid out. We saw some payments from different LLCs where cash would be funneled in different ways. And this was just laying the foundation for, I think, what the important part of his testimony was basically we saw a transfer from an account to another first, and foremost. One of the subsidiaries was like Janice Combs Music, Janice Combs Publishing, which is his mother. But we saw that there was a wire December 14th, 2011. If you guys recall, 2011 in December was the Kid Cudi drama with the breaking into his house or trespassing. The alleged Molotov cocktail came a month after that. But this is when Kid Cudi went to Connecticut with Cassie, and Cassie wrote her mom this email that said threats and said, Diddy's threatening to release my sex tapes and he's threatening to hurt Scott Mescudi and I. And then Cassie's mother, when she was on the stand, she testified that she sent Diddy $20,000 at his request. And then it was sent back eventually. So we see an outgoing wire transfer on December 14th, 2011 for $20,000 from Cassie Ventura. So I'm not sure what that is. We did see that, but then we saw an incoming transfer on December 23rd for $20,000 from Roderick Ventura, and Derek Ferguson, the CFO, was reading this, and the government said, "So do you have any idea about this, or did you help facilitate this?" And he was like, "Nope, I did not." And then on December 27th, we saw the outgoing wire transfer for $20,000. And it was to the Charter Oak Bank, which we previously heard Cassie Ventura's mother say that was their bank. So I went back to look at that on my notes. So yeah, that was pretty much the big part of the testimony here for the direct. He also disclosed, the government asked him if he had talked to Mr. Combs after he left. He said, yeah, sometimes on holidays, whatever, birthdays, we'd send a text, but not too much. And then they said, do you remember getting a text from him in September of 2024? And he didn't. They show him something, a document, and he says, oh, okay. It was September 16th, 2024. And he said, and by the way, that was the month that he got arrested, Diddy, in New York City. And the text apparently said, hi, give me a call. And then he got another text after that, and it said something along the lines of, I just want to get together and talk or get some advice. And Derek Ferguson said he was in transit, heading somewhere, so he never actually wrote back and talked to Diddy, but that was that. And then for the cross-examination that was done by Mark Agnifilo, what happened, I'll give you just like an overview here. I'm just pulling up some other notes that I wrote after on my phone. So he went through all of the businesses and was really ensuring that the jury knew that these were legitimate businesses, and that there were CEOs running these businesses. Like, for example, we saw an org chart of Revolt. We saw, Diddy was not mentioned at all on any of the Revolt org charts. And then, he talked about how at one point BMG owned a portion of Bad Boy, and so did Arista Records. So it's like, he just said, could Mr. Combs just kind of pay himself what he wanted here or do what he wanted? And Derek Ferguson said, no, he had to go through all of these different hoops, to do so. And also, the defense made sure that we knew Derek Ferguson's background. He's a really buttoned up guy. He went to Stuyvesant High School in New York City, very prestigious. Then he went to UPenn, and then he went to Harvard Business School. So, this is a really intelligent guy. He also talked about how he wanted to work at Bad Boy Entertainment because he's from the Bronx, and he thought that Diddy was doing really good things and giving opportunities to a lot of young executives. He, again, talked more about the company, how he reported to Benny Medina at one point, and then talked about the partnership with Diageo, and how it was successful for a time and how he kind of helped facilitate all that. And then there was a lot of objections and sidebars because, Mark Agnifilo was like, well, was there a problem ever with Diageo? Ask it differently. And essentially it came out that, and I believe there's a lawsuit around this. This is what he wanted to get at, but Diageo was only marketing to certain urban areas, and it was a big problem for Combs Enterprises. And so let me see. Oh yeah, he talked about how Revolt TV, like the board had 40% of the seats at the company, and the board was the 40% went to Highbridge Capital or something like that. Again, just saying that Diddy can't just do whatever he wants within these businesses because he has to answer to different people. And then, he was asked, he just said, like, you worked for Mr. Combs for 19 years. Did you see anyone help Sean Combs commit crimes? No. Did you see anyone make the company stronger through, coercion? I don't think he knew what he meant by coercion. So he's like, what? And Mark's like, fine, whatever. And then he said, did you see any sex trafficking or sexual abuse? And he said, no. And he just said, look, you were there for 19 years. And he just kind of reiterated that he saw Diddy build the business from the ground up. And he also pointed out that Derek Ferguson was on the board of his charter school, and that that school works with high risk children, but there was like a lot of objections because they're like, okay, stop making him look good, multiple things can be true type of thing. Yeah, and then that was pretty much that. During the redirect, it was, they just kind of got him back on track again with some of the Janice Combs music publishing stuff, and kind of just reminding us that he did have certain accounts that just had cash funneled through them. And, those were I don't want to say they were like offshore accounts, but they were just smaller LLCs. But anyway, I will have more updates for everybody tomorrow for day 16. We seem to be moving along. The pacing, I think, is going the way that the government wants it to. And hopefully, as the judge said, and the government has said, we should be done before or on July 4th. So let's see. All right, everyone. Thank you for watching and for listening. I'll see you next time.